there are 2 handouts.
One of them is
take
a
with
survey
you.
for me, so if you could get this back to me, so I love feedback. And the other one is for you, just basically, what's the one thing? We're talking about trying to, don't overwhelm, just think of a few things or one thing that you can take away and do different, right? As we kind of warm back up and get going a little bit, we're going to talk about, anybody interested in talking about scribes a little bit? Since, is that on the docket? You guys were thinking about getting scribes? Or?
So
Scribes in one facility.
You have one.
Scribe facility that's right at the cusp of single versus double coverage and not being able to isolate one exactly what the coverage cost effectively there.
So when we first were organizing FedEx, we initiated a survey at what you guys would you like to focus on a couple topics, and one of the topics was efficiencies in the ER, and one of the topics somebody mentioned was use of scribes and helping flow and efficiency. So I had told Drew that those were some things that were on our minds, but we can talk about whatever.
Well, let me just address that. So, believe it or not, what we just did is really got a lot about efficiencies. They've looked at fighter pilots and nuns and all these different patient populations and found that you do stuff like this and you work on this stuff and you become more efficient and more productive. So it sounds counterintuitive and seems kind of strange from our mindset, but this stuff really does work. So if you lean in and do some of these things, you will become more efficient and more productive. And time will slow in a way, and you'll have more, and all that's going to be beneficial. So it's counterintuitive for me, at least the way I'm wired, but it really does show statistically this is more important than any of the other stuff. That being said, I'm glad to answer questions and talk about ways I work through efficiency. For many, many years, I was the #1 most efficient doc in my group and made a lot of money for doing what I did because of my efficiencies. But I think that's just a quirky thing in me. And they still tease me about it. My partners still say, okay, Drew, what's the 5 p.m. shift again? Okay, you come into work and you pick up all the charts, and between 5 and 6:30, you see everybody. Then at 6:30 to 6:45, you let the other guy that's transitioning over, this is how I think, welcome to my world. You let the other guy transition over and pick up 1 to 3 charts if they're in the rack. If they're not, then you let them go and you let them transition over until at 8. And then at 8 o'clock, the night guy comes in, and at 8 o'clock, I take my break for 30 minutes, and then I come back and I get recharged and reset up from 8:30 to 9:30, and then I pick up every chart I can from 9:30. Every single shift, I have this mental way of doing it. And so my partners always ask me this goofy advice now, okay, now what's the last thing to do in this one? They tease me about it, but it works for me.
Let's go back to that 30-minute break.
I was thinking.
What the hell is that?
It's regulated because we have scribes. So that's a scribe thing. Back in the day, we didn't have that. The scribes have to have a 30-minute break. So you can keep seeing patients without the scribe, but it's kind of naturally in our culture, since we started using scribes, it's developed as like we all know that the scribe's taking a break, then Drew's taking a break. So it's actually been probably healthy for us to have that fixed break, but some of my partners will see people without the scribe and some of them won't. And so on the topic of scribes, we went through all the renditions, right? You know, we went through paper, T-system, dictation, and scribes, and now we have Dragon. And I'm worried that Dragon's been introduced to us because they're going to get rid of the scribes, but we set up a deal with our hospital to get scribes based on the cost it took to the hospital to do dictation. Dictation was so exorbitantly expensive that scribes were a steal. So we convinced the administration to pay for the scribes because we won't dictate it. And so basically our dictations have gone to almost 0, and our scribe coverage has been covered by the hospital so far. It may not last, but so far they've been paying for it. And then we looked at our billing company and have done extra research on how much the scribes have captured for the hospital and how much more they have raised for the hospital, and it's been significant. So then when we were re-upping the scribe contract, we threw them with that one and we pitched that one to them. And so now we still have scribes. And I don't think they're going away because we found that they're more efficient and they make the hospital money because they check the boxes and dot the I's and they do all that stuff. So scribes have totally changed the face of the way we do business. It's been transformed. I mean, we're totally into it.
Do your PAs have scribes too?
Yeah. So everybody's got a scribe. It's just a totally different way of doing it. It's really great. So I'm really pro scribe, even though initially I was like, I hate this because I'm a dictator, you know, and I can do it so much faster. But you have to warm up to the process. Some of the scribes are really great, and then others need a little work. But we're really embedded with the scribe company. We've got one partner that just like literally meets with the scribes every month, and we're really that's how we roll. We're embedded in everything we do. And so it's been really productive. We see more patients, we're more efficient, we capture more charges, so it's been really a great thing. So
With the scribes, have you been able to decrease ED staff or docs or bid levels?
that's a good question. I think in theory, some of my partners have intimated that we should be able to do that, and we should do that, but at this point we haven't. But the answer, I think, is a yes to that.
How do you use the scribes? Do they write a chart up and then you approve it, or do you tell them what to write, or how do you?
So everybody has a different scribe method. One of my partners goes into the room and calls out positives while he's in the room with the scribe. And so the scribe and him the scribe's standing with their computer. And then my partner, most of us sit when we get a history, but not always. And then we get the history and they're typing it and getting all that stuff. And then when they do the physical exam, one of my partners will call out positives, lungs clear, lungs coarse, whatever. And then in the room, he'll get on the computer and put all his computer entry, and then he'll be done. So he's in that room for a while, but he does all that stuff. My flow is go in the room, get the history, get the physical, immediately step out of the room with the scribe and say, lungs were this, and kind of describe my physical exam. And maybe touch up some of the history, like, hey, did you catch that? Did you catch this? And then we will go back over to my little workstation. I like to put my orders in my little workstation. And then that's how we do it. And then some of my partners do the MDM right up front. So they'll actually leave the room and then give their whole impression and everything. They'll dictate that right up front, and then they'll tweak it at the end. And then I usually just do it at the end. So that's kind of, everybody does it a little bit differently. Yeah. But you get some scribes that are like crazy. Like, hey, there's a kidney stone in the UVJ on the right side. It's about 2 millimeters. I mean, crazy. Some of these guys are like, it's amazing. Hey, did you catch that? Like, they're catching you. They're like teaching, hey, did you see? It's awesome. I mean, some of the scribes are really sharp, and most of them are very competent and just really good at what they do because they've done it long enough. And it's fun. It's like a mentor process. I mentor a lot of the scribes because they're all 20-something pre-meds. So I always start my shift with them. It's like, how are you doing? Where are you at? MCAT's right? Applying? All that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun.
What kind of feedback from your mid-levels are you getting about it? Like, who might be seeing, the fast, track patients or something? Do they feel like they're helpful in that?
Yeah, everybody's like it. I don't know anybody in my group that doesn't like scribes, except for the occasional scribe that's like, DBT. DBT. They can't it's weird. It's a fascinating thing to observe because we're so used to it. But the transition for learning the language and typing fast, those are the skills. And some of these guys just can't. Either they don't type fast enough, and so you'll know when you've got a scribe that needs a little work. Is like, what was that? I didn't catch that. You did. You have better hearing than I do. And then you read their chart, and it's like, oh my gosh. There's like, it says, you got to be careful. You have to definitely, new scribes, I have to remember, I got to review every word that there's. But some of these older guys, these guys that are like, hey, Dr. Lawson, the CAT scan on bed 6 is back. I think there's a kidney stone. Those guys, their record is pristine. I mean, it is unbelievable what they capture.
Are they typing it while they're in the room while you're getting the history? So it's like done.
Lifetime and dead time, so to speak. I mean, they're always at there doing stuff, putting in things, checking things off. It's really cool.
Not to bring it back to the patient, bringing it back to the patient, how do you think the patient experiences with scribes? Like, do you introduce them? Do you?
Good question. Mixed. Some people always introduce. I'm crappy at introducing people. I'm crappy at names, so I suck at it. I know all my scribes' names, but I suck at remembering to do that, so oftentimes we just roll in the room. If I get a look from the patient, like who the hell is this person, then I introduce them. But oftentimes I say, hey, this is a scribe that, I don't like by name, but hey, this is a scribe that's gonna jot down all that we're talking about and everything. But the patients in general, the satisfaction of patients has gone up because they love it, because they have some young person in there with them, you know, sharing. It's like a community. It's like, you know, it's like when you see the patients that have their entire family wedged in the room. It's, you know, more the merrier. I mean, they literally really enjoy it. They comment on that. So it's really been great.
The scribe company that we work with at Brook, for a lot of people here, I don't think work with them, but the one thing they said that I liked was their job is to be in the room and be as little noticed as possible. And you'll see them actively seeking out a corner and just sinking back with their little computer on wheels, like just trying to make very little noise, stay out of the way, and yet they catch everything.
Yeah, they're mini-me's, right? They're us, you know, 5 years ago for some of you, but, you know, 30 years from now. You know, they're just, you know, they're young, eager people, and very often they're behind the curtain. I mean, oftentimes she's just like this, and she's like, you know, hiding behind the curtain. It's like, so, I think they're great. I think we might transition to some point, some of my partners start to use the dictaphone, the dragon dictation, and they're starting to do that, and they do that with some of the scribes that are slow. But I usually just talk slower because I like the connection with the scribes. But I'm worried that that might be the next rendition. All of a sudden, I'm going to show up to work, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have scribes anymore. We're going to use the dictate, you know, the dragon."
Are you employed by the hospital?
What's that?
Are you employed by the hospital? You're self-employed?
Yeah,
But they're still paying for your scribe? That's interesting.
they're paying for the scribes. They paid for dictation, and they're paying for the scribes because we saved them a lot of money. And now they're even more like the scribes because of all the you know, we showed them that how much money and how many things are capturing that the nurses don't capture, other people don't capture. So we're kind of using the scribes. And anytime we say, hey, can you do this too? And they're like, well, they're 20, of course. So they add stuff. So they start capturing all that crap that, you know, the nurses don't capture or something, and that brings the revenue per patient higher.
I was a scribe before we used to so I'm kind of on the other side of it. And I think it's like an excellent thing all around for people who are scribes and doctors and providers. I don't know, it was really awesome to have that experience going into the case floor. I have a few physicians that I'm still in contact with that were great mentors and teachers, and they love teaching us scribes after we felt like them. And
Yeah, it's been really great, and I've written several letters of recommendation for my scribes for med school. So it's a neat thing. I think it's a good thing. And I'm gonna have to start using. I'm just worried they're gonna take it away. Okay, so back. Any other questions? Just we can keep talking. What are the top? If you were to draw the pie, what would the 5 things that we do most at work, clinically? We're going to break it up into non-clinical and clinical. What are the 5 things that we do most of our time at work clinically? What are we doing?
Chart.
Document. Well, so is that clinical or non-clinical? We can. I'm just playing with you. I mean, you know, there's some little area of like, well, what is that? But we'll put chart.
Right.
So that's a big piece, right? Okay. What's another?
Collecting data. Review old records.
So that's here too, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Procedures.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I think probably consults, right, is on there.
Department flow, cleaning beds.
Yeah, that one might be. I guess it's. I don't know.
Education.
I was gonna say, just
Patients, families.
discussion for families, discharge instructions.
Teaching residents.
MDM.
It's not care, but like reassessment.
Reassessment, retelling them the same thing you told them 3 different times.
Right?
The redundancy of the conversation.
That's amygdala hijack, right? So it took me like decades to figure that one out. It's so fascinating to me. The nurse would go, Dr. Lawson, you didn't go in there and tell them that about their broken ankle. I've been in there 3 times. I've told the same story 3 times.
You told it was broken, you didn't tell it was fractured.
Yeah.
Or you told them it's fractured, but it's broken.
But so much of that is through my experience with this stuff. I just realized, their amygdala is completely hijacked. Their amygdala is unsafe, unfamiliar. So they're not listening to the word you say. So just be patient and keep doing what you're doing. Okay, so of this list, where do you think the percentages are if we broke this into a
75% charting.
I was gonna say 70% charge.
charting? 75%?
75, no, 50.
60.
50.
So the other 20, 30 to 25 to 30% is
Talking 75%. What? 40.
Seeing patients is like white numbers.
yeah. So the actual patient history, and physical, and assessment is a smaller percentage, right? So maybe even 5 or 10%. And that would probably, education might be in that 5 or 10%, right? That's all being with the patient, talking to the patient. And then the procedures, I don't know. You guys do a lot of procedures?
Depends if you're
Yeah, laceration stuff. So it kind of depends on where you're working and what, yeah. Consultants. So all of this stuff is probably in that 5 to 10% range, right? Which of these, do I want to spin it positive or negative? I was going to say, which of these are high burnout items? Or you could flip it around and say, which are the ones that are most fulfilling, however you want to play. So if you go to charting, what do you guys say?
the albatross around your neck.
Necessary evil.
So brutal, not happy, don't like it, right? So this is a high burnout potential right here.
Consults.
That's the other.
What's data collecting, reviewing records?
That's kind of the charting. You always do it at the same time you're at your desk.
Okay, so another like 3-star.
If we break that down, to urine collection.
Collection, yeah.
Me collecting the urine from my patients.
Data collection.
H&P and patient reassessment.
That's the good part of it.
The easiest part.
The good part, right? So we like this. If we had more of this, this would be great. Would education be in that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What about these other procedures? Okay, right? We don't mind them. You like them? Okay.
Along with consults, so it's also care coordination.
Yeah.
Under the 5 different.
How are we? That's a great. I love that. So, consulting, department flow. This is all kind of care coordination. I like that. Right? That kind of falls under that bucket. Where are you guys at with that? How sexy is that? Yeah, like care coordination, like the consulting and
Not sexy.
No,
It's a lifestyle.
oh.
it is a sub.
Well, yeah, I think consultants are different than department flow. I think you have to separate those.
Okay. Well, let's go with consultants. Overall,
I think it depends where you're
Depends on the face.
person and location, right? So a little bit variable. Sometimes you actually look forward to talking to some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so plus minus, and then department flow stuff, care coordination. I love that phrase. Good.
It's a lot of babysitting too, like finding out why your mother was murdered 2 hours ago and isn't done.
Yeah,
But
it's not always
lower
good.
decks,
Department flow is always
would be
kind of a conflict.
fire patient hasn't
It's a
done an
challenge.
X-ray.
So this has definitely some burnout factor on it.
Constant interruptions.
And I would say that calling consultants, if you're a night shifter, that is a major burnout.
Is
Because
dealing-
nobody
yeah.
likes you.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk to you.
Even if you're a pug?
Even if you're a pug, exactly.
Am I sensing that you're frustrated with me?
Or it's like snoring. Wake up.
So you guys, I don't want you to step over the power of this, and this is gonna be an important list as we continue. Because this list helps to clarify where are the places that my saboteurs are showing up and I'm burned out, and this is gonna get me headed down the wrong path. And where are the things that if I turn the volume up on these, I'm gonna have a better day. Does that make sense? So that's important. All you guys have your journals open and you're writing notes and you're capturing this, right? So now I'm curious just to ask, what are the non-clinical things? And I guess we kind of have some lap over, right? So are there some to me the big non-clinical for me is CPOE. And just basically EMR in general. But as I talk to you guys, rumor has it you're getting Epic, which I'm like completely drooling over the fact that you guys get Epic, and I have out of the top 25 EMRs, I've got number 24. And it's MS-DOS based.
Oh, wow.
And it's Meditech, and it sucks. So this one to me is really high, but for you guys, I think you're actually not.
They don't, the young people don't know what you said.
I know, yeah.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. So in any event, is there anything, what else is on the list non-clinical that makes up your work day that you do?
Group interactions?
Emails?
Can you answer what CPOE is?
Computerized physician order entry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What else is on here?
Telephone calls about incoming patients, medication changes.
Oh, dear God.
Pharmacy clarifications, if they can change the doxy, HCL to doxy.
Target pharmacy calls.
Result callback.
Cultures?
Yeah, exactly.
Discrepancies?
Dealing with ancillary departments, like not getting your strep because they lost it. X-ray taking 2 hours.
So are any of these like, wow, I love these things? Or are these all on potential burnout list?
Do you answer email at work?
Well, I thought this was outside of work. I thought.
Oh.
This is all inside work.
In the department.
But there's some positive non-clinicals in the work, interactions with the other staff, the nurses, the phlebs and stuff. A lot of those can be positive interactions that are non-clinical in nature, social.
Staff, peers, nurses, consultants. Okay, so of those, which one's
I know
like
what else
sexy
we
and I
have to
love
do.
to do more
Put the
of?
bed up, get pelvics ready, all that crap we shouldn't have to do.
Right.
That's wasting our time. Going to get suture kits, gloves, nobody, their stuff's never ready.
Yeah, I thought that was only in my hospital.
I'm working of thumbs too.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is tech job.
Yeah, so a lot of,
Discrepancy in priorities between them.
I'll just put tech work or something. So if we were to if we were going to say, of these, I'm guessing this is the only one that really is, if I could do more, this is pretty cool, I like this. Everything else is a drain.
Yeah.
Anybody enjoy any of these things? Look forward to them?
I don't mind talking to pharmacy.
You like talking
I know I'm
pharmacy?
on a first name basis.
I'm not going to go there.
Do you mean outpatient or inpatient?
No, outpatient, Walgreens, Katie's, all
Also,
Okay.
social work stuff.
These are all pretty high burnout, is what I'm hearing. So important, okay? This is important learning. We laugh and we joke about, but these are important things to kind of start to compartmentalize or understand about how we work at work. The things that drive us crazy. Get clarity around the things that drive us crazy and the things that turn us on. What that looks like, what that's going to be like. So good. So way back when there was this 6 or I think he was 7 or 8. His parents got divorced, and he was kind of a fugly looking guy and kind of lanky, goofy guy. he can actually, this kid could actually take his ankle and the heel of his foot could touch the back of his leg. It's like a ballerina or something, you know, he like had weird joints and stuff. And his coach, his mom said, you know, I should get this guy into something that gets him burned out, you know, gets him tired, so to speak, because he was really hyper. And so he met this coach and he started swimming. And the coach said, I want you to play the tape every night. Every night I want you to play the tape of your perfect race. And this kid was 8, you know, 8-year-old, can you imagine? And I've actually taught my youngest this story, and he tells me about the tape that he plays in basketball. Hey, I played the tape. Anyway, playing the tape for him was every night before he went to bed, he made a mental, closed his eyes, and imagined the perfect race. And so he would do this. And so then when his coach said at practice, hey, play the tape, that meant he gets up onto that block, he does his little thing, and he plays the tape physically. He actually swims the perfect race. Usually at the end of practice, and he swims in. So usually at the end of practice, it was like, you know, you're going to go for your fastest time or whatever. And I remember those days. And so he would play the tape. So then you fast forward, and he's doing this consistently every time at night, and probably a couple times a week at practice. He would play this tape. So he would close his eyes and visualize the perfect race.
Entering the National Aquatic Centre, the finalists of the men's 200 metres fly. And of course, the favourite today, lining up for what could be his 4th gold medal of the Games, in lane 4, representing the USA, Michael Phelps. Phelps has held the world record for almost 7.5 years. And as they go towards the first turn, it's New Zealanders Moss Burmester, closely followed by Phelps. Burmester trying to keep the pace. And is just under world record time. Phelps just edging ahead. He has posted the 5 fastest times in the history of this event. And the 150, things are looking good for the USA's Michael Phelps. He set a new Olympic record on Monday. Today he's chasing his own world record. And it's looking like he might break it once again. And he does it in first place. Michael Phelps of the USA, shaving .03 of his own world record and adding another gold to his tally. It's full credit to Michael Phelps of the USA, gold in the men's 200 fly.
So, anybody know the story behind this specific race that he had? So when he dove in, his goggles fell and twisted on his eyes. So they filled up with water and he basically swam the whole thing blind. And so after the race, there was a point where he got out, where he was looking at the stands and looking at his coach and saying, I couldn't see, like he was blind. And they interviewed him afterwards, and the funniest thing, you know, the interviewer, everybody found out his goggles were twisted around his eye, and they interviewed like, how do you do it? And it's just like I imagined it. That's what he said. He didn't need to see. He was playing the tape. So it was a classic example of somebody who's looking at that vision so strongly that no matter what, they're going to, I mean, a world record with your goggles wrapped around your face, I mean, forget about it. If it were me in that race, I would stop, I would grab the wall, pull the goggles off and keep going, but I wouldn't get the world record because I would have lost all that time. This guy's like, this is a perfect race. I know my counts. I know what I'm doing. I'm literally swimming blind. It's tricky. I mean, I can do it because I've done it a lot. I can manage, but it's tricky. And so this is an example of how you are able to solely focus on that, and that's from years of mental preparation of playing the tape, playing that perfect vision of what we want to do, what we want to do in our lives, what we want to do in a race, whatever it is. And so, what does your ideal ER look like?
Empty.
Write that down. So break out your journals, and I want you to actually take some time and think about what's the ideal look like. And I'm talking like, is it a number of hours per week, type of shift, person there, patients, type of patients, type of procedures. You didn't see my perfect ER, sorry. There it goes. So what's your island, the perfect ER setting for you, the perfect hospital, the perfect location, whatever it might be. Get some detail on this. Take a few minutes and really think through, what is this perfect vision of my ideal work look like? Patient per hour, amount of money per charge, I don't know. Be as specific as you can or want to be. butterfly stories? When I was in 7th, 8th grade, my coach made me swim every single event. And one of the events I had to swim every other weekend was a 200-meter butterfly. That is a long way. There were several times, I can even remember when I was like 12 or 13 or 14, like touching the wall and thinking, I don't think I can make it to the other side. That's a brutal race. Unless you're a butterfly. A butterfly, it's like, like a dolphin. Like, oh, this is easy. That's what Phelps like. And we had a guy that played one season in Marple at Stanford with us named Pablo Morales, which is an old name. He was a gold medal winner in the 100-meter butterfly. And our coach made us swim 400-yard time. Every once in a while, you just say, oh, we're going to do a 400-yard. And these guys sheet, and he's going to time us like, ugh. Marple players hate swimming longer than like 25 yards. So they just hate it. So we're all like, ugh. But the one thing you knew is you better not get beat by Pablo, because he's going to swim the whole thing butterfly. So all of us were like, trying to get ahead. So because he beat half the team swimming butterfly this distance. It's crazy, fun to watch. Butterflies are just a unique breed. They just have it's almost like they start when they're really young and they just get it. You don't get it, you're not gonna get it. Anyway, sorry. This exercise is for you guys to develop and keep, and it's a living document that I want you to have on a folder somewhere, in paper or in computer form, that you start to continue to think about and develop. It's like playing your tape. It's like this is a process where you start to develop in your head, what's this ideal place look like, sound like, taste like, feel like, all those kind of things. Get clarity on this, all right? And I've looked at these slides for so many years, I didn't realize, I think this is Alcatraz. It looks like the structure of Alcatraz if you've ever been to San Francisco. I think this is like a picture right before they close. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as a beautiful island where there's an amazing ER. Okay. What's the floating in the middle of the Pacific, hoping the sharks don't eat you place? So where, it might be right now. So now I want you to journal a little bit on where you're at now. Where, kind of vomit up some of the real crappy stuff that drives you crazy. Start to think about the gap.
It's the opposite of everything, basically.
Oh, you're so great. I love it. It might be the thing you wrote, that'd be great. Then that means you're in an ideal place.
No, it's the opposite of what we wrote. What we wish for, how we
What we
get
wish
there.
would be different.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's you just spent time on the ideal, like the place and the number of hours, the more detail the better. Whatever it is. All the details that comprise your work life and what would make it really amazing. And then down here is now, maybe, current reality, So this is the beautiful island scene, and this is the floating aimlessly going to get eaten by shark. I don't know. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe you gave yourself so. Here's the now. So just give me a few minutes of writing down the now. What's the now look like? And the now should be a little bit of maybe a little bit of list of pet peeves, a little bit of things that kind of irk you a little bit, like why the now isn't the ideal. Think about that. Some people have a really short list. Other people are going to be writing for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, that's what he's legal with for those.
Okay. Seeing some yawns, looks like most people are done. Again, living document, a place for you to park all of these things, to get them out of your head and into the paper. A sleeping tip. We do better when we get this stuff parked somewhere. When we have to-dos that float around our head, get them onto a to-do list. If we can't sleep and have insomnia, we have a little pad and paper on the side of our bed and we write all this crap out and flush it onto the piece of paper so that we can sleep better. So this is kind of this process of saying, I'm on a raft right now, the island, I can't even see it so far in the distance, or the island's just around the corner. Wherever the island is, there's some gap. And this gap creates the to-do list. So this got cut off, but it says to-do list. So the idea behind this is these things that you just started today that I hope you find a place to put and either keep the diary or transform it into a digital format. You have the ideal here, you have the now, here and now, and then you just start cherry picking some of the things that create the gap. So it might be, for me, it might be full set of vital signs on my patients. So whatever that looks like, and don't get overwhelmed by this. Don't try to be a superhero and get everything done at once. Just one little baby step. So if you get a list together collectively in a wellness project or individually, we have a list. And you just start checking off the list. So you just take one animal, whatever it is. If it's cath urines, but for people, whatever, 90-year-olds, whatever it is, start to strategize. It's a dilemma. It's not going to be something that we can solve overnight, but make it a theme for 6 months or 3 months, however you want to strategize and organize it. Just start knocking these things off one at a time. Might take a while, might not be perfect, but look to try to actually close that gap by the to-do list. Does that make sense? So right now, take just a few minutes and think about the ideal and the now and your gap, and write down some of the things that you would put on that list to knock off that would make you closer to your island.
Personally, or the big wish list? Like the ultimate wish list, like if I were the king of the world wish list?
Your questions are yeses. I'd say yes to both. Have a personal list, and then maybe, ideally, there's a collective list that maybe you guys can all get together and come up with like a collective list. But of course, if you're in charge of the world, yeah, both. I'd say both. Everybody still awake? Still writing? my perfect world, inside my little head would be, wouldn't it be great if our EMS meetings were just going after this? I've thrown this idea out. It hasn't stuck yet because everybody's freaking out, because if we have all the nurses and all the docs in the same room and we start going through a pet peeve list or a to-do list to try to get to the other place, there's going to be too much saboteur chatter. They don't use the term saboteur chatter. Actually, several of them do, because they know that's what I talk about. But it's going to have to, you probably have to have a mediator, probably have somebody kind of, okay, we're all in this together. But I think it'd be so cool to have our EMS meetings filled with whatever the kind of top list is and say, let's knock one of these off. Let's make this the thing that we're going to figure out a way to manage better. See how I said that? I'm getting better. Not solve, but manage better. And so just start to knock off a couple of these things would be really great. And maybe you get some momentum and knock off a few more, but just slowly but surely kind of get to this, head towards this direction. It's a process, it's not a goal. We're not ever going to get to this ideal place, but we're going to head that direction rather than stay where we are now. So collective and individually, a to-do list I think is a great understanding of where we want to be. And it might be simple in your little private world. It might be, I really love to get down to 12 shifts a month. That would be better for me. And that, whatever it looks like, I don't know. Whatever, all right, type of, whatever. But you have the list. Individually, ideally, maybe collectively in a wellness way, you could design it. That's kind of my thoughts.
We have a start, those surveys that we sent out. I sent out a survey to the nurses about what their ideal, and things that they would appreciate us to do. We sent one out to our ADPs about DACs and DACs babies. And I told Drew in a break that I felt like announcing that those lists was a saboteur sort of method. So this is a good exercise that we've done some collective work. If you didn't get a chance to fill that out, now you can send it to me. And maybe during our monthly meetings, we tackle one of those to-dos. It's a great project.
Small bites and little in the right direction, I think, goes a long way. I think there's a lot of growth just in doing it. Even if it's not a home run, maybe it's a bunt, but I think that's helpful. So we're towards the end of our time together. I just thought of the image of a tool chest of some of the things that I've done, I've seen done, I've seen work to help with the work part of life. And this is not by no means exhaustive, it's just a couple things. One of them is journaling on patient experiences. Can you imagine coming to the end of your shift before you leave for work, or going home and doing this and spending 5 minutes just jotting down something that actually was good or positive, or we looked at that list, right? And we circled the list of the things clinically we love to do. This is a way to capture and celebrate and turn the volume up on those things that we actually are here to do, we love to do. It was me sitting down, I didn't used to do that, I do that now, it's important, I think. You find a chair, even though that's one of my pet peeves, is why there are not chairs in the room so I can sit down, so then but getting a chair and sitting down and talking to, this woman with my scribe behind me, and we walk in, and for whatever reason, she's an older lady, 92 or 3, probably has pneumonia, and I see on her arm, I just gently touch her skin, and I say, hey, can you tell me the story behind that? And she's from Auschwitz. So immediately, I'm getting emotional. Deep dive, she said, I lost my sister, I lost my mom, I lost my dad, I lost my brother, and she went off on this story about how her life has been spent teaching kids about Auschwitz and what it happened and why it was there and all the bad and all the good that came from her experience. Just craziness. And I left that room and I was just like in awe. And the scribe behind me was just like, oh my God, what just happened? She said that. She's like, oh my God, what just happened? I go, that's this just magical thing that no one else in the universe gets to have, that we get. If we take that extra minute, that didn't take any extra time. I saw her subsequently, she came back and she was like, I only want Dr. Lawson. I was like, I wasn't a good doctor to her. I just sat there and listened. I mean, it wasn't rocket science. It wasn't like I gave her the right antibiotic or something. She's like, I want Dr. Lawson. Is he here? And it's like I saw her and gave her a hug, and doesn't take much. But so what are those experiences that we're having that we're completely stepping over? Every day, I guarantee you, I step over them all the time. Capture those. Journal about those. Pause and take it in. I'm certified in this STEPS thing, which is like, it's called Team STEPS. It's like a national effort to try to help patient safety, patient care and improvement. And it's this like government-run, military-/government-run program. They've done all research to back its success. And it's basically these ways to communicate better with each other. And I think some of the tools in that tool chest that they have trained me in, and I basically taught the entire hospital staff over the last year and a half. And we actually now, I will be teaching every orientation to everybody that comes in the hospital. I'd love to do more of this and less of that, but there are some cool things of STEPS. Don't ask what STEPS stands for. It's like strategies for teams to help better patient safety or something. But I wanted to share a couple of these things that are pretty cool concepts. One I didn't put that I'm just going to share right up front that is the only one that anybody's ever remembered is CUSS. And for some reason, CUSS has stuck. And CUSS is this mnemonic for concerned, uncomfortable, safety issue. And so we have these long list of tools that we're supposed to train everybody in, and of all those tools, the only one that's stuck is CUSS. So routinely in the hospital, I will have one of my charge nurses say, hey Drew, I'm going to cuss at you. They think it's so funny and so cute, funny. But it's a red flag, it's a up, something's up. So it's almost like a safety word. You're like, I'm going to cuss at you right now. And so I never hear you're supposed to say, I'm concerned. And then if the doctor doesn't listen to you or the nurse doesn't listen to you, then you say, I'm uncomfortable. And then if they still don't listen, you say, I think there's a patient safety issue. And those are supposed to be the 3 DEFCON levels, but we just say CUSS. And it's been really great. It's a great tool that we use to help us go, oh, I need to listen up here. I might be missing something. So that was an added little thing. Brief is the beginning of every shift. The nurses do they probably call it a huddle, right? Okay. Well, technically, in the lingo of STEPS, it's called a brief. And a brief is basically the beginning of every shift. The nurses at our hospital have a 7 a.m., a 12 noon, a 3 p.m., and a 7 p.m. huddle. We've changed the term to be brief because that's what it's supposed to be in this lingo. So they have these briefs, and the doctors never show up. And if the doctors show up, they say, sit down, shut up, and let me tell you about how to treat X, Y, and Z disease. So I've taken upon myself to have a coaching moment every time I work. So every time I work, if I'm at whatever those increments are, I will show up and give a little teaching moment, a very brief vignette. We are a magnet hospital. I don't know what that means, but we're a magnet hospital, partly on the coattails of the idea that I started with this. And I just basically said, every Monday's Music Monday. Every Tuesday, I can't remember what we used to do, Tuesday something. Wednesday's What Went Well Wednesday. Thursday's Thankful Thursday. Friday's Freaky Friday. Saturday's Sage Saturday or Socratic Saturday. I just made these stupid things up and it stuck, and it was like they, had the magnet people come and I taught them this, and anyway. The point is, it doesn't really matter what you say, but you show up and you say something that's meaningful and interactive and fun. I keep in my journal a tag of huddle notes or brief notes, and I just, when I read something interesting or something that's, I will just keep it on that list. So if I get paralyzed and go, oh God, I'm at work and I can't think of it, I just go to that little list on my phone and I pick something out. And when Music Monday came along, when we started to do that pattern, it was funny. They'd play like a fart song, or they'd play some funny song, or somebody would play a song that was really made them tearful. It's a connection. It's a powerful connection of why we're there and what we're doing. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's goofy and funny. Thankful Thursday was great because, we gave thanks to something that went really well in our lives or at work. So kooky idea. I mean, like Socratic Saturday, I think was just, let's ask powerful questions today. What questions can we ask today that might be different for the patients? So, my question might be, do you have any other questions, or is there anything else I can help you with? Or what are you really concerned about today? How, something, I don't know, just some quirky, different change in the way you would normally ask a question. You probably always ask those questions, but makes sense? So show up to the huddles. I've talked to the nurses, and some of them will say, yeah, I like when Dr. X comes and tells me about, cardiac arrest, but in general, I think this is a deeper, more meaningful touch point, is to have these kind of connections with them. A huddle is something we do now, and it's defined as a course correction. So we do huddles now, and this is all the step stuff. We do huddles now, and it's a course correction. So we literally, and the nurses will call it out, or I'll call it out, and it's typically around like, let's check in with how we're doing, which patients need to be admitted, and the nurse will come, charge nurse will sit with one or both of the docs on and look at the list of all the patients and go through the board and say what needs to be done and who's being admitted, and right, we all do this, right? Well, we do it more frequently now, and it's a really powerful touch point to get connected with the rest of the staff. Sometimes we do a bigger huddle where we actually have a bigger group of nurses, but I think this is really key to connection and to help work flow and efficiencies. It's much better. As an aside, I've done this several times at different hospitals. I've taken a group of ER nurses and a group of ER doctors, and I've used a tool from, you'll see shortly, SDI, Strength Deployment Inventory, this assessment thing, which has a bunch of laminated pieces of paper with words on them. And they can be, if you are a green person, you are methodical, analytical, enough said. That's kind of a green, that's a green person, so to speak. If you're red, you're directive, persuasive, assertive. If you're blue, you're caring and supportive and helpful. If you're, and then there are mixes, blends of those. And then if you're a hub, you're flexible and collaborative. And, so everybody's got kind of a flavor to them, so to speak. It's all really great, but we're all a little bit different. Well, these cards have those adjectives on them. And they're color-coded. So the greens have these things. And so I had 2 rooms, and I put all the nurses in one room and said, I want you to design your perfect ER doctor. And so I threw all these things on the board, and they got on their hands and knees and moved them around and said, no, he's not that, and he's that. And then they got their list, and it's like a pyramid. And then I had the ER doctors in the other room do, I want you to design your ideal ER doctor. So same thing, right? And then I brought them together, and we compared notes and said, what's at the top of the list, and where is it different, and what's significant about that? And then we reversed it, right? So then I had the nurses design the perfect ER nurse, and the ER doctors design the perfect ER nurse. So nurse, and it was a wonderful opportunity to get clarity around what's everybody's priority. So I'm telling you this story because, one, I'd love to come back, it'd be fun to do that. But more importantly, the thing that came to our attention was analytical was really high on both lists. And I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. So I asked the question, like, so what does analytical mean to you? Well, for the doctors, it's I need my quiet time to think about what I'm doing with this case. And I need a little bit, sometimes I get distracted, I need a little bit. And for the nurses, it was, I want to know the plan. I don't need to know the little data. To be honest, they were actually admitting, it's kind of interesting how to treat a heart attack, but I want to know what the plan is. What needs to happen? What are the steps you're thinking about? Amazing. All my partners were like, really? We've been doing this for 20 years, and I didn't know that. So it was really helpful. So that's a key thing. I've done it with several hospitals, and you get a little different answers depending on the group and the dynamics. But I think that's helpful to know. They really want to be communicated to, and they really want to know what the plan is. They may not want to necessarily know exactly the medical part of it, but they really want to know the plan. So huddles are course corrections, and huddles are those opportunities to tell them the plan and to discuss the plan with them. A debrief is basically after a code, after a baby dies, after any of these things, we have a debrief. And we say, what went well? What can we do better? Sometimes we'll have pastoral care get involved and kind of like debrief because it's really stressful when we have kids. We're a kids hospital. We're a peds hub center. So we get sick kids. Drownings are popular, and I know about here that they're pretty popular in Orange County. So it's pretty stressful. So we have debriefs. I put debrief on here because we do this and it's great, but I do it when I suck, when I totally screw up. When was feeling, okay, I'll tell you this little story. So I go into room 2 and there's a guy short of breath, looks like he needs to be intubated, but I'm probably gonna put him on BiPAP. And I'm calling respiratory and getting all the record and kind of putting all the things together. And I'm waiting for the thing to go in the system, right? You can't put orders in until the name's on the system, right? So I'm waiting and waiting. It's taking like 20 minutes. I'm like, now I'm getting a little pissed. And so I'm like, going to admitting, can you please put them in? Yeah, we're working on it. They came from outpatient, blah. I don't care where they came from. Just, name pops up. Sweet. Put in all the orders. And our order sets are kind of funky, so I got to pick and choose and add this, and needs a little bit of Lasix, and needs a little sprinkle of this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, it's driving me crazy. Dr. Lawson, that patient that was entered in room 2 was from the waiting room. That's not the right patient. Okay. Can you please delete all of the records you just put in? That's the follow-up statement. Okay, so I delete all the records and everything. And then Mark comes around the corner with the patient that was in the waiting room asking me to put orders in on that patient. I don't know if that gets you, but it just freaked me out. I was like, okay, you're telling me that, one, I have to put the orders in the right patient when I put them in the wrong patient, and the wrong patient I put them in, I have to put them in again for the other patient. I don't know. For some reason, I snapped. And I said, no, I can't, which is really unusual for me. And I said, no, I can't. I need some space. And that was probably not a highly productive way to interact. So my debriefs, unfortunately, end up being a day later, I come into work, and Mark's there. I say, hey, Mark, do you have a second? I really screwed that up, and here's what happened, and this is why I was so stressed out. So I do some, recovery, so to speak, with my debriefs. Ideally, the debrief is something bad happened, or there was a big case, and you debrief what went well. But I'm just giving you the sidelight is, it's okay they love that. People love that. People love when you say, I screwed up, I was out of line, I was stressed, I apologize, how can I do it better next time? I mean, great stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. Batching, we talked about briefly. Batching is the idea, is there anything that we can batch together? Like we used to have these cultures come to us piecemeal. So now at 10 a.m., the 5 a.m. doc's in charge of all cultures, and they come off the printer. And we have actually a social worker take them off the printer and categorize them and get the phone numbers for the pharmacy and get the allergies for the patient and look up the records. So she's doing all this stuff ahead of time for us. So then she just comes over and says, Dr. Lawson, do you have a minute? Sure. I have this 2 cultures, and they need to be called in for Flagyl and whatever. Okay. So it's a really great example of batching. It makes life a lot less stressful. We used to have a little tray in our department that had all the EKGs get put in. But we stopped doing that because EKGs need to be read more quickly and they were kind of languishing. But I think that is something to consider, is like, do you guys have a little tray, or is there some flag system that you can put so that you're not constantly being inundated with, hey, can you check this, can you add that, can you order that? We have a little bit of a system in the CPOE that the nurse can put a little note like, hey, can you put in this order for Tylenol? But in general, that's not ideal. I mean, so a system where you can batch things, I think, really reduces your stress at work. I'm giving you ideas, I'm not giving you answers. So these are just things. Automate and delegate. A lot of these stressful things you guys are talking about, if there's, like computer order entry, if I have an abdominal pain patient, I'm like so fired up. Because our abdominal patient panel is so sweet. It's got everything I need. It's all there. Whatever I need is in one set. But if it's like, heart failure versus pneumonia, it's like, oh my God, which one do I click? Or a kid with asthma, I can keep going. There's stuff on there that I don't, so I need to automate. I need to, I need to get organized and say, I need an order set designed, and I need to talk to the people that do that, and I need to say, here's what needs to happen. So make these things automatable. I mean, if you're dictating the same note over again, make it, cut and pasteable. If you're working with scribes, scribes, we use the scribes a lot with, please put my back pain template in. So every one of my partners will have a little tweak, or some of us just use the standard template. But I'll say, physical exam normal, but these findings. And that means they're going to use my template and fill in the, So automate these things. If you find yourself doing things over and over again, stop it. get someone to do it for you, delegate, or make it automatable. Because otherwise, we're just hitting our head against the wall. So think of things that are happening, think of things that are happening now that might be on a to-do list that can be automated or delegated. What are those things, and how would that look like? This is a big one. If it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen. So this is a project for you guys to take on. It's, what is your ideal, it's kind of like this ideal work, but what's your ideal week look like, or your ideal 2 weeks? Where do you want your shifts? How many shifts do you want? I have a calendar, Google Calendar, that has Ben, Sarah, Noah, Brooke, me, coaching, ER. It's got color-coded 7 schedules that are all intertwined, and when I look at my calendar, it's a work of art. I know exactly where everybody is, what they're doing, what to expect, and once a week or every other week, I look at with Brooke and I say, Brooke, what do we got going? What am I doing this week? Where are we at? Where's the time we can have sex? Where's the time we can go out for a walk with Buddy the dog? I mean, whatever it might be, right? So don't be fooled. If it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. So schedule this stuff. So start to get your ideal calendar out on a digital system. You got to go to Google, go to whatever you work. Has to happen. Don't leave today without that. There's one thing I would say, this is a game changer. Figure out what needs to be on your calendar, integrate it with your spouse or family, it's helpful, and start making that happen so that you know what's going on, because if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. So put on time, what I call on time, into your calendar. Put date nights in your calendar. There should be a date night, and by the end of that date night with your wife or spouse or whoever, there should be another one on the calendar. You should be looking at the last and say, where are we, when's the next one? And if you have on time is me time. And so there should be time in your schedule on a weekly or bi-weekly basis where there's a block of time that's you time. And I recommend that you have a folder or folders or places that you go that are just fun projects you want to work on. Whether it's writing a blog, or whether it's going to a bike store, or going to look at some new gizmo to put on your crazy Porsche. I mean, whatever it might be, you want to have that me time. And some of that me time can also be spontaneous time, meaning that you could have that 4 hours, you can block it off and go, I got nothing, I'm just going to enjoy. I'm going to go do something frivolous, something I've never thought of doing before. Whatever it might be. But schedule that time, because if it's not on your calendar, it won't happen. Okay? Am I passionate about that enough? Do you guys sink that in? Okay? Second thing is, and this is something that I designed with one of my clients, and it's been a home run, was that he took all his direct reports, he had 12 direct reports, and he took them all and he said, this is your homework. I want you to design your perfect 2-week cycle, and then I want you to share it with each other. So then they started sharing it with them, and they found out that Billy Bob, that always is missing from work from 10 to 1 in the 10 to 1 p.m. or whatever, comes back with a black eye, and no one had the balls to ask him what was going on. He's a kickboxer. And so his only time in the gym is from 10 to 1, and he comes back with a black eye, and no one knew it. But Billy Bob, on his schedule, it says like Tuesdays from 10 to 1, kickboxing. So then all his team and all his people said, hey, look, he likes kickboxing. Well, that's pretty helpful to know. And it also is reassuring to know that he's not getting beat up by somebody, that he's actually doing this on purpose. So that, he said, was transformative for his group. Just knowing what everybody else is interested in, what their hobbies are, what they like to do, it was really great for them. And then he really said it helped connect them, and it made them more efficient and more productive because they know what everybody's doing and why they're doing it. So it's really a cool, fun thing that I really think is great. Enough said? Enough said.
Drew, does your group do block scheduling at all?
Is what?
Block scheduling, like where you have like a distinct shift that you're working a distinct day for?
Like, so you could do a block of days and a block of PMs and a block of nights, or
You always work the second week, month, or whatever.
Okay, so this schedule question is, we in the past, I was a scheduler with another partner of mine, because before it was one guy and his schedule looked really good. So Rick and I stepped in and said, can we do the schedule? And the rest of the group said, yeah, let them do it. So now we have been the people doing the schedule, because I think more than one person doing it makes it more fair, because it was kind of getting a little lopsided. And we would have several of the guys that are like have high admin stuff. They would send us kind of a fixed schedule, or kind of like certain meetings and certain things, and they did less shifts. And then the guys that were high work users, like worked a lot of shifts, then we would try to honor, like they would only want 3 or 4 shifts in a row, you know. And we would use EPSCED, and it was a computer program, and it was kind of clunky. I think it might be DOS too. It's pretty old school, but still, Mark, you can still look at it, buy it. And EPSCED, we would program number of shifts in a row that John wants is 3, and number of hours per month John wants is 140. And it would try to stay consistent with that, and it would also check for, you know, back-to-backs, like, you know, 5A and then a 5P, and try to keep it, what's that called? There's a term for that, flow correctly. So then we would just spend hours a month, like, you know, we do 6 months in advance, which is really great because no one knows what they're going to do in 6 months, so the 6-month schedule is really easy, and it gets harder when it's like, you know. But we would spend a lot of time making sure equal number of weekends, equal number of nights, all that stuff. We have a night guy that we pay a premium to, so he works half the nights. And then we had another night guy that retired that did the other half of nights. So now we have a couple nights we have to cover. We're thinking about hiring another nocturnist, because that's a high value item for us, because we're all in our 40s and 50s. So as you get older, that kind of becomes a higher value for us. Every group's going to be a little different. And then we just switched to ShiftGen. And ShiftGen is by an MD, PhD guy that I know from Stanford. And he'll talk your ear off. You can call him right now and he'll probably answer his phone. And ShiftGen is awesome. It's been really slick. You can, all kinds of fancy, you want the computer, the IT guy's got it, whoever the group loves the, it's like, you got to spend, you know, it can be all the parameters you want. You know, how many shifts in a row, all that stuff. But you restrict, like we've so far, which I'm not thrilled about, but we've restricted to you only get 12 days off a month, like you can actually choose. And you go onto the system on my phone or wherever you want in the world. It's web-based and phone-based, it's really slick. And you go onto it, and then you click off, when the schedule request is entered, you click off the days you want off. And it'll even go if like you request a specific shift you can do. But again, some guys were requesting all these specific shifts, and we said, okay, partners get 2, managing partners get 4. You know, so we've kind of tweaked it, and it's been slick. I literally right now can get on my phone and request a shift or switch a shift or anything right from my phone. So that's how we've managed our shift process. Does that help answer? That's probably a long answer to a short question.
What we do, I had a couple of people tell me to look at ShiftGen, and I have to give them
It's cheap.
but it's cheap, well, they say it's cheaper than the one we have now. They also need a lot of information for me to get that. We have 450 doctor shifts a month.
Yeah.
We have 500 or more mid-level shifts a month. We have 90 people on 2 different schedules at 5 different locations.
Yeah.
So the information they need is.
So just to answer your question, talk to Ram. He's the guy. He's the designer.
I do have his number.
Okay, he's a
I've
neat
already
guy.
emailed
He's,
him.
I think his PhD in computer science or something. But he designed the whole thing, and he'll spend a lot of time with you and walk you through, make sure you're happy. And it was significantly less than EPSCED, and I thought EPSCED sucked.
Well,
So
we're on Tangier, which is not horrible.
yeah.
For getting everybody's schedule out. For those of us doing the schedule, I do our schedule with an assistant.
Yeah.
It's basically like,
Yeah.
because with that many people and that many preferences, there's no computer system right now that.
So that I'd love to hear feedback if their system could, because our system was like that, and it was EPSCED, and then basically us doing it by hand.
It's, you know.
It was helpful, but this now with ShiftGen, it's like,
It's helpful for all the statistics.
yeah.
But there's so many intricacies of each person that it's difficult to program that in.
Yeah.
But I've actually, Marcel gave me the number for ShiftGen. You sent me something recently, and I've been emailing.
Yeah. So see.
So it's something I have to.
Yeah.
So that's another system we're looking at.
So that kind of answers your question. Yeah.
So basically, they're all the same.
We do drop it in buckets, which is underutilized, but there's a little bucket and these little pieces of paper, and you pull them off and you write, you know, I can't believe you got that ID, you're such a great nurse, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's simple. No one uses it. I'm like the only like super user of it. But I think, I'm as I see this slide, I'm reminded, like, when I get home tomorrow, I'm going to do it. Every shift I should do at least one. Again, looking for the good, looking for the positive, celebrating the wins. It's an easy one. Communication conflict management is a huge subject we're not going to cover. But I'm going to share 2 brief videos with you about how you can completely revolutionize this problem, or issue, or dilemma.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Keeney, and SDI has been an amazing addition to the arsenal here in the emergency department. Today, I literally diffused a bomb. My mother was very upset, and here on a second visit because she didn't feel she got good care. And through the SDI process, I really understand a little bit better than I used to about how to deal with those situations and with those people. So patient-doctor interactions, nurse and staff interactions that used to go very poorly, and I couldn't figure out why, now go very well. And even at home, I mean, my wife and my kids, it's really helped out there too. So I highly recommend this for a medical environment for a multitude of reasons.
Pretty polished, and that was his first take at that. He's on the radio. Everybody says, is Dr. Keeney here? Because he's like on like some radio show every week. He's really slick. He's very tan too. Handsome too. Anyway, he was a big proponent of it, loved the system. He's basically taking an assessment. The assessment is 20 questions. The first 10 are how you are when you're in a happy place, when you're not in conflict, and the other 10 questions are basically the same question, but how do you manage, how are you in conflict? So you get an assessment with 2 different results. You get what motivates you when you're in a happy place, what your general wiring is, and then what you do in conflict and how you manage conflict, like what your natural tendency is to do in conflict. This thing has just completely changed the way we do things in the ER. Nurses that you charge nurses drive me crazy. It's kind of fun to work with them. I look forward to working with them because of this. And so much of conflict is finger pointing, saboteur, judge showing up, screaming, yeah, it's us, me, you know, real antagonistic. This thing is like putting this is the SDI, and it's like putting it in between us and going, hey, look, so you went blue on that. That's so interesting, and and so it's weird. It seems so, but we start to talk about the colors and how we manage the conflict rather than, I'm going to wring your neck. It's fascinating. I'm still fascinated by it, but it really works beautifully. When we first started out, I started with the super users that I knew would be the super users because I think some of my partners were like, you're not going to psychoanalyze me, and bunch of dudes, knuckleheads. And they warmed up to it after the charge nurses kept on hammering them about the fact they should do this. And when I did it early on with my charges, one of my charges came to me and said, Dr. Lawson, you need to see these 8 other patients. You got to do this, blah, blah. And I said, Jana, I'm stage 2 green right now. She's like, oh, cool, stage 2 green. That means you need to have a little time to analyze and withdraw and think through things, and then I can get you back to your happy place. And I go, yeah. And she left for about 45 minutes, came back and go, just checking in, where are you at now? I'm perfect, I'm right where I want to be, everything, thank you so much. She used to freaking drive me crazy. I mean, I hated working with her. I mean, hated it. It's the most painful thing, top 10 list. And this totally made it so fun, and to this day, we're like close friends, really interesting, and you will see her right
Hi,
here.
my name is Janet Kendall, and I'm one of the charge nurses here at Mission Hospital Emergency Department. And Dr. Lawson brought the SDI to the charge nurses to start with, and it was a very eye-opening event for us, especially for me, because we have a bunch of different personalities here in the ER, and one of them is within our ER physicians. And I had a constant conflict with one of our physicians on how to get the end result that we were both looking for, which is good patient care and getting the job done. But every time that I would approach him, it seemed that I would set him off from minute 1. Sometimes in a rush, sometimes I need you right now, and sometimes just to get a plan on what we're going to do next. And when I started to understand SDI from Dr. Lawson, I started to perceive and guess on what our physicians were, and this Dr. X, we're gonna call him, ended up being exactly what I thought. He is a green, and I am a blue, green, and red, so it ended up being that every time I would talk to him, I would set him off immediately, because I'm a go-getter, go-get-it-done, hurry-up person, and he's a little more laid-back, analytical. So when I determined that that was how I was going to approach him, it ended up being an awe-opening moment for both of us, and kind of like the light bulb went off on, I went and said, hey, Dr. X, what do you think about, or what is your plan, or why do you think? And he got to explain himself, and the end result ended up being patient satisfaction. He was a little calmer. I was much happier because as the charge nurse, I needed it done, and he got it done for me. So I have to tell you, being the one that everyone goes to get the answers, it really helped my job a lot. So thank you.
So the backdrop to that story, which she said, okay, I can't handle Dr. X, drives me crazy, blah, blah. I said, so what do you think he is? What's his happy place? I think he's probably green. I go, I think you might be right. And he hadn't taken the SDI, and green is analytical, methodical, needs space, autonomy. And so I said, what would it look like to be green to him? Maybe I should ask him what he's thinking about this case, this seizure case, and blah, blah, blah. He said, yeah, maybe. So I didn't think much of it, walked to the other side. I was at ED South, and this was ED North. 7 hours later, I come back, and I said, how's it going? What's going on? She goes, it worked, and she starts crying. I go, uh-oh, what worked? I asked him, I did green with him. I said this and this, and he actually put his arm around me and thanked me. They've been working together for 15 years, and he's never, done anything like that. It was magical. So it really is a cool system. It's simple, elegant, easy, so it's really great. I have 2 more slides. So the last one I was going to talk about is EMR, but you guys seem like you're pretty good space in EMR worlds comparatively than I am. You guys have a lot of nodding heads, and it's not so bad.
Well, in 2016,
yeah.
we're supposed to be that big.
So I'm going to just pause there and save that for another time, but there's a lot of, if you lean into it when you get it, be a super user, take this stuff on and embrace it, because it's not a problem that's going to be solved. It's a dilemma that needs to be managed. So just get the strategies together, because all those transitions are really, really important and powerful. Lastly, do you guys have a transition method when you leave work? Do you have a ritual? And if you don't, you need one. So I'm going to ask you, my last tool chest thing is find some transition, healthy transition, some closure, okay? So it can be playing a certain song as you leave the hospital. It can be taking your shoes off in your garage and putting them in a special little place, and leaving the garage and taking a shower and just sit in the shower or a jacuzzi or something. It's putting something on that's different, changing out of your clothes right away and putting in something else on, okay? And there's nobody better to illustrate this than good old See, he's coming home from work. Look at the sweater colors. Look at the one he chooses. What color is that? Pink, right? Or salmon? Zip it up. Here. Okay, watch. Watch it. This is shoes. ritual. Find a couple, whatever it looks like for you. For me, it's once I get home, I put my shoes in a special place, and I don't really greet the kids because I got MRSA on my shirt probably. So I say, hey guys, I'm home, and then I go right upstairs, and if the jacuzzi's on, great. If not, I'm in the shower. I take a shower and just kind of let the hot water go over me, get some reps, right? Just feeling the water and just relaxing, and just kind of let it all go. And then I change into whatever, and that's it. I'm done. That's my kind of closure to work. So whatever that looks like for you guys, it's really healthy to get it. So if you don't have a transition or a closure thing for work, get one. It's really healthy.
Do you know what the secret of life is?
No.
This.
Your finger?
One thing. Just one thing. You stick to that and everything else don't mean shit.
That's great, but what's the one thing?
That's what you've got to figure out.
Even old, he's intimidating. It'll come to you. What is it? City Stories. That's it. Okay. So, what's the one thing? What's the one thing? You can have more than one. Don't worry, but I don't want you to be overwhelmed. There's a lot of data we covered. But just think about it. I'm permanently embedded to your system, so on the side is all my info, so call me, write me, email me, whatever you need. I'm available. The other sheet I'm going to hand out is a survey. Write whatever you want and get it to Denise, because I love the feedback. And I'll hand out the other ones too. Sorry to rub it in. Yeah.
Which beach is that?
I don't know. I just got it off the internet. But,
Oh, it's not by your house? Come on.
That actual scene is about 2 miles from my house.
Which beach?
Coronel Mar Beach, or
Sure.
that's my closest to my house. My buddy who just moved to the area about a year and a half ago has this like spectacular house on the hill with the ocean view. And that's for the fancy corporate rich people, but I'm close. Like when I go for a run or something, I can get a picture. I can get to see the ocean pretty close, and I can always drive there. It's overrated. You guys aren't missing anything. Yeah.
Oh my God, it is not either.
It is what it is.
So, Dr. Lawson not only offered for us to use his services by flying out to Newport Beach and meeting with him, but we can, he uses Skype, he uses a lot, coaching over the phone. Certainly a resource for us in your career. He's used to doing this, so this is an excellent resource for us.
So, Denise, I'm going to ask that she get me all your emails. I can put you on my newsletter. It's a once-a-month thing. I write about this stuff that we talked about. This month's sampling will be about how to do a wheel to check in with your wife and your kids, which is something I've started to do. It's really been fun. Find out that your son on a 1 to 10 scale of school thinks school is a 6, and why is it a 6, and isn't that great? And how could it be a 10? It's a really fun, simple check-in tool that I use. So if you guys don't like being signed up automatically with the email list, then it's easy. Once you get the newsletter, just say, remove me, I don't care, it's fine. It's just, that's one of the things I do. I used to blog every week, and it's got like exhausting for me, so I just do a newsletter a month, and it's usually about a page or half a page, so. Yeah, and like Denise said, I coach physicians that are great, that want to be greater, and then I coach physicians that are struggling and want to be better, disruptive guys or people that are struggling, or most of the time my clients, corporate and medical, are people that want to just sharpen their skills at whatever they're doing. So I do one-on-one coaching, and then I do this stuff. So be honored and privileged to come back, or maybe you guys can all fly out and come to Newport. But use me as a resource. I really, as you can tell, I'm passionate about this. I really think that these things, when applied, can really change your life at work and at home. And I'm available until Denise takes me away to the airport. So whatever questions you have, comments, thoughts. So we're supposed to end at 2. It's 2:05. So to honor that. Time, take off, and I'm here for questions. Thank you guys.
so much. Thank you.